So channel, yeah, I want to talk about. Do apologise for the rough look. It is Sunday, and my weekend's normally off. I don't normally do videos on Sundays, but I wanted to do another video just to sort of like answer some questions on terminal services, remote desktop, things like that's come up with another question that's been commented. So when you're using terminal services, it's based on its own operating system, which runs on any server environments. It's based on Windows 2008, which is common terminal services, and also you can get on the latest 2016 version of Windows Server, basically, because it's part of the services on that. You just, when you install it, you set it up as a terminal service rather than as a standard server, basically. So it's quite easy to do. We have to do some installs on this one and show you how to do it. I've got a couple of terminal services that I can run on the virtual environment, so I can actually probably do some screenshot grabs on another video to show you how to do the install. But terminal service is really great. So basically what companies have, whether you're a small business or big business, you'll normally have a standard file and print server as standard in there as its own domain. And then you install, because you can't run the terminal server as a server for doing file sharing and print sharing as well. You've got to keep them separately because they do work differently. So your first server, most businesses will have it already there, which will be a terminal server with its domain on there, all set up and users logged into it, and file and print sharing as normal. So when you install terminal server, you store it same as a server, but at the end when you finish, you then add in the remote desktop services, which I'll do a video for that later with more details on that. And once it's all installed, then you install your apps. There's special command lines you'll put in place to allow the apps to be installed in the special terminal server environment, so that it knows that software is for a terminal server, not as a standalone application. So you install your basic stuff like Microsoft Office, which has got your Outlook, Word, Excel and PowerPoint, it's the normal stuff, and any other software you want to run on it, because most software that I've been dealing with remote desktop services for many years, and I also support it as small business to the hosting environment side, and also worked on terminal servers on a very large business environment as well. And terminal servers is great because you can deliver an actual app to a desktop. So you just run a client, you log in, apps come on a normal window. It looks like it's actually on your Windows environment, but it's not. It runs on the server. You can run it as a full desktop. I've always run it as a full desktop because that way you can deliver a complete desktop solution rather than the single apps and stuff like that. So you install the terminal services, install the licenses, install your license certificate for it, and it's ready to roll. Install your applications, so you choose the application you want. And most of the applications I've known do run on terminal services. In some applications say it doesn't work on terminal server environments. I've managed to get it running. I've even got old apps running in terminal server environments as well that people want to deliver to a remote desktop. Many programs like OSB Sage, QuickBooks is fine. Even the latest version of QuickBooks runs fine. Sage runs fine on terminal server environments. Even though, check when you buy your software, if you've already got software for your company, check to make sure it does run in terminal servers, because they normally install it in their own sort of way and it works quite well. But some that say it's not designed to run on the terminal server desktop, you can run it. It will be a little bit buggy. Sometimes some apps will be buggier than others. Other than that, they will run smoothly. And I have not had any problems with any software or even old software that in the past that wouldn't run. So they will all run quite nicely. And most of the time, the Office I generally get is in the past is mainly Office, because all your normal Word, Excel and PowerPoint and Outlook stuff, and Sage or QuickBooks, which is seen to be a common one in the UK. And other apps run on that is when they use the Raw Mail printing software, which they pay online. They have a little app that sits in the corner, in the taskbar hides there, and they click it up and they can then do a post and it prints it out. That's fine. Printing stuff like that, it tends to work quite nicely, because obviously when you go on the client side, which we'll talk about in a minute, you also map the local printer to the terminal services. You can actually do a network printer on your network, and you can add it in terminal services you would if you was adding it for a normal PC. You don't need to install any drivers or software, because it will it does it in the background quite nicely, so you don't have to worry about installing printer drivers. Very much maps any printer, as long as it's installed locally on the machine or the client machine you're connecting with, it will create a local map to it. Some printing can be a bit difficult, can be hard. It prints raw, so if you're doing it over a long connection, like a broadband connection for instance, and your speed's not very high, you can buy a third-party app to go on top that will actually deal with your printing, which it does, because at the moment with terminal services, it'll take a raw print job, stream it down to your local machine and print it out in RAW. So there's no compression going on there, and if you're on a local area network, it's you got the bandwidth for it. It's not a problem. But if you're out and about in a very low bandwidth situation, you need to print local to your machine. Then this software can add a third party logs in and takes over the printing. It compress it, it'll transfer it, and then uncompress it, and it prints, and it's seamless. Once it's installed and you license it up, it's perfectly. I will give you more details on my website about that. I'm going to go and look at all the applications I've used before. I'm going to actually put on my thing. So look out for Pacific Area for Terminal Services and remote desktop services as well. Okay. So on the client end, you can run Windows 7, Windows 10. Nearly every version of old Windows does have the remote desktop connection already there, and it's always backwards compatible. I've not had any problems with an older machine and a new machine not able to connect to remote desktop. It's installed on every machine, and including Windows 10 and Windows 10 Pro, it's already got pre-installed. Just look for the one called Remote Desktop Services or Remote Desktop Connection on your normal Windows 10 PC, and it's always installed. And you just open that up, type the host address in, type your domain and stroke your username, password, click connect, and you're logged in, nice and easy. And also I will go through some setup tools, how you set up your desktop client on your PC, what you need to take to make sure your printing talks, and you can also actually create a file path between your remote desktop and your local desktop. So when you go into your local desktop on my computer, there's be a map drive there you can also use to get files up on the remote desktop as well. But a lot of clients in the past, I tend to lock that off, so there's no way of getting files up there unless it's got a virus scan through the IT department as standard. Other ways around that, you could, especially if you've got remote users all around the world, you can create and you can build, actually install an FTP server. You can do so you can FTP up, file transfer the files up onto the remote desktop. That way it gets virus scanned on the server end before it drops into the shared area. Or another way you can do it is actually connect up Dropbox, which works well on the Terminal server environment as well, or you can use the Microsoft OneDrive as well. So count on both ends, drop the files in, you can see at the other end as well. It's another way of doing it as well. So that way you don't have to worry about it. Plus, as long as your antivirus software installed locally on your machine, it will scan that before it goes up, so it's all safe and nice. And obviously when it hits the server end, the server you should have a virus software loaded on there, it will scan it as well. So again, nice protection. So there's different ways to do it. I did a business on remote desktop services where customers will pay for the desktop. There's lots of different charges. There's in the UK, there's prices between £25 per user per month to up to maximum £50 per user per month, which can be quite expensive. But if you're hosting a terminal server environment and selling that out, it's good money, good profit involved as well. Because the way I did it, I used to buy all my licenses from a Microsoft server, buy all the terminal service licenses. I owned those, so there's no. And once you've owned them for all your clients, and then if you say you build up, say you've got 100 clients, for instance, that's a good bit of income coming in. And then say I know 5 of them didn't want to re-sign up again the year after. Then eventually another 5 come on board. You don't have to buy any additional licenses. Your license is still there for it. Bang. It's only when you grow, you extend, then you need to buy additional licenses. You do that anyway, but it's always cost effective of doing it, and it's a great way of creating it. And co-hosting is quite easy to find in the data centers, and it's not mega expensive, so you can actually build your environment. So I tend to do my remote desktop hosting now over Unraid rather than using Microsoft Terminal Services itself. It works completely different. So as long as you've got a Microsoft Windows license, the Unraid comes built in. It has its own virtual environment for it that you can build remote desktops. Works as good as a terminal server would, but it's just another cheap way around it. Because obviously with a terminal server, you've got to buy the server, you've got to buy the software, you've got to buy a license for each connection people log in with, you've got to buy a terminal server license for each user that logs in as well. Then you obviously got a Microsoft Office license for each user as well. But on an Unraid server, you pay a certain fee depending on how many drives or devices you have in your server. Then it comes built in free with Unraid. Then you just build your Windows. So you just need a Windows desktop license, a login license, and an Office license as normal. So you don't have to pay for the server license, don't have to pay for the server terminal server license. That save you cost because you can do it from Unraid as well, and it works as the same, as no difference. I've moved clients from a terminal server environment to an Unraid remote desktop sort of side, and they don't know any difference because they always get that desktop delivered in front. And I tend to now sort of look at remote desktop hosting directly, so they use Windows 10, because obviously when you're running Windows Terminal Server, you're running it in a server environment, so as long as the software you use can actually be installed on a server, then you're okay. But when you get software that is not built for Windows Server and will not physically install because it recognizes it and says sorry, wrong OS to install on, then you're pretty much stuffed. But running a full Windows 10 on a hosted environment using VM basically, or Unraid's own version called VM, it's actually called VM as well. Then you just install Windows 10 as normal. Then you can give the users full access to the desktop, so they can configure around as much as they wanted to do. If something goes wrong, you just deploy another one really quickly, or you can just reset their accounts and they're back in again. So it's very easy to manage as well. And that way they can install any software that's compatible with Windows 10 or Windows 10 Pro. And always use Windows 10 Pro on a hosted version, because obviously you want it connected to a network, so they can have access to a file and print, access to a login drive, and if it's part of a domain, Windows Pro will connect and log in as a domain as a proper user. You can manage users in one area. Otherwise, if you don't have a domain set up, then obviously when you create a user ID on the server, you've got to create one on the machine, on the desktop itself, make sure they match. And if he decides to change his password, then his files won't access. Where in a domain, it's all under one roof. If he changes his password, it matches and it all still connects. So that's any slight difference because on the Unraid it will work in a domain environment, but you've got to install a domain controller first, which then you need to build Windows Server on your Unraid that acts as the domain controller. Then you can then put Unraid in the domain itself, and then the users and stuff will then sync up. So they change password, it also changes here, makes it seamless. Otherwise you've got this big mismatch going on. Or you can force the users not to change their passwords. You can give them a password that's very hard to guess. Users alike, very much like we use their names with some numbers, easy to guess, birthdays, things like that. Favourite hobbies is easy enough as well, they use. But if you create one and you can say user unable to change password, it stays as it is, and things like that. So there's lots of things you can do. It's a very easy environment to manage. As long as you've got the right spec server, then you should have no problems with user logging in every single day. It's very much a hands-free supported solution. It's really nice. So yeah, because I got Unraid down here, which has about 5 users on it, and I never need to touch it. They just work seamlessly, smooth, nice, no problems. Don't get any calls say, can you do this? I might get a call once in a while, once in a blue moon, to say it's froze, and I just go in there, see what's wrong. 9 times out of 10 it's either their connection that's gone too slow and they can't connect in, or I might have to reboot the VM from here, which is easy because you do it over a web browser. And you've got your Unraid all set up for your through your IP done correctly with a domain behind it. You can log in anywhere and access it, so you don't have to be in a centralized location to support it. Oh, that's really good. So hopefully that guy out there answered your questions. So yeah, you need a file print server with a domain in place first, then install a server with Windows Server on that one. Then you can then turn some terminal servers on, which will do an install and set up. How you do that on building the second server? Log them in the same domain, fire up all the apps on here, set up the user accounts, and away we go. So I will do a video later on this month, so it'll go out before the end of this month, where we show how to install Windows Server 2016, which is currently the latest one. That's one I've got license for anyway. We'll then show you how to install the terminal server services for it, so it makes it into a terminal server. And then we'll show you how to install the apps on the terminal servers, what you need to prepare it for and how to install it. And set up a user ID on the domain. So we'll assume you already got a domain there anyway. So we'll show you how to put the server into the domain, then it's ready. And then we'll then show logging in from a remote desktop end into the server, and how it all looks at the end of it, because you can customize it as well. Because obviously Windows 10 is very customizable, so you can take lots of stuff away. You can take away a lot of menu stuff they don't need, so you can literally deliver them a desktop that has start programs and then the programs they have allowed to access to straightforward. And you can already map the drives up for them using a login script, or you can manually do it and it just remembers it all the time. So we'll show you all that detailed on a series of videos going through. I need to check on my YouTube channel to work out my playlists, because they're all like mixed match. I've added playlists all over the place, so we're tied up a bit more, so it makes more easy searchable playlists, so you know what you're looking for. And if you go to jackskier.co.uk, we'll make sure it's easy searchable in there for terminal server, remote desktops, environments. We'll talk about VM, we'll talk about other flavors out there as well, because you can buy like a VM in product that runs on top of normal standard Windows Pro, and you can run from there as well. So there's different scenarios. The Windows 10 server, terminal server is most expensive. Run it on, I think it's called Workbench something. There's a program out there that you can run it on top of Windows. That's the least, the next, it's not as expensive as the server, so it's a bit more cheaper. And then you've got the cheaper version, which is Unraid, running on Unraid itself, which is much more cheaper to do. So you've got a very low budget, Unraid. If you've got all the money in the world, especially running an IT department, and you already got domain controllers in place, you just want to run virtual desktops, but you want to manage one server for all multiple users, then you look at Microsoft Windows Terminal Services on that side, and you flush as well. And we also look at the product you can actually put into Windows Terminal Server itself to manage printing better over slow connections for remote users and stuff like that. So stay tuned for that one. So thanks for watching, guys, and I've got some more videos going out this week. I'm actually going to put a video out tomorrow. I'll probably get it tonight, done tonight if I don't get back late tonight. And that's all based on the Linksys stuff. So we've got more of that Linksys stuff coming up as well. And I mean, we're talking quite a lot about wireless solutions and stuff like that. So I've got some new ideas. I've been playing and testing a lot of stuff I've got here as well, because I tend to now play and test stuff first before I create a video. Then that way I've got more knowledge and I can show you the ins and outs and stuff much more quicker and easier as well. So stay tuned on that, guys. So if you like my videos, thumbs up. Don't like my videos, thumbs down. And if you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button right now. And don't forget that bell notification. Click on that so you know when I launch a new video. If a lot of people tend to ask questions on my comments, I'll answer back with a live video like what I've done today. So much more easier, then I'll concentrate my time creating better videos on how-to stuff coming up very soon. So thanks for watching, guys. Cheers.